like I said, just because you don't cheat don't mean that you a good wife. Because there's a lot of women who do not cheat, wouldn't even consider cheating, that keep a filthy, nasty house. Better press on. In the end, according to LaToya, one of the brothers, it's not known which one, told Katherine, of course, she was overcome with understandable emotions. After she and Joseph had it out, there was nothing to do but deal with the situation as it existed. As a practical woman committed to family values, Katherine put her feelings aside and agreed that Joseph had a responsibility to Giovanni and to her mother. As a way of providing for them, she and Joseph purchased a 3-bedroom home in Van Nuys, a suburb of Los Angeles, for $169,000. As a trustee of his daughter's estate, Joseph then signed the property over to Giovanni. She and her mother then moved into the home. Katherine could do no more than that. Though Katherine seemed to be acting in a logical and sensible manner, she was not as unfazed by the news of Giovanni's existence as she may have wanted people to believe. Michael would indicate later it was at this time that he sensed an emotional transformation in his mother. She rarely smiled during these days. Her temper would flare over unimportant matters. She ever swore from time to time, which was unusual, and had called Giovanni a bastard. So when we read LaToya Jackson's book, we know that this is around the time that Katherine was acting a bitch. She was a bitch because she was mad. Now, I'm not saying that her behavior is correct. What I'm saying is that I understand, and I've been there before, where somebody messed your head up so bad you just angry at the world. But when you choose to stay, you choose to forgive. You cannot stay in a relationship with somebody saying that you forgive them while still punishing them, the child, and the woman. There's no way you can do that. Listen, my ex, the barber, the female barber, let me tell you something. One thing she told me years ago, early on in our relationship, and I have to tell that to my wife sometimes, okay? I'm not a cheater, and she's not a cheater. That's not our problem. But my ex, the barber, told me was, Nay, just because you don't cheat don't mean that you a perfect girlfriend. Don't mean that you got your shit together as a girlfriend. It could be a whole lot of things wrong with you. Stop relying on the fact that you don't cheat. So the fact that Katherine is not a cheater makes me believe that she's a bitch and she's a nag and she just she's annoying. That's what I feel. You annoying. You around here calling this little girl bastard? Yes, it's true. She does not have a pappy, okay? Or wait a minute. She does have a pappy. It's Joseph. Joseph is the pappy. What the hell? LaToya mentioned this in the book too, that her mother was being real nasty. She had misplaced anger, okay? And you know that goddamn girl Gina got it. I don't like you anyway, bitch. I been ain't like you. She ever swore from time to time, which was unusual, and had called Giovanni a bastard. When Michael protested, she suggested that if he looked up the word in the dictionary, he would find that she was using it properly. Apparently, Joseph's indiscretions had worn her down, chipped away at her self-esteem, her pride. She now sometimes seemed bitter and angry. And if she would have called around there to the NBA like I told her to, and had Julius Irving come around and rub her feet, she wouldn't have these damn problems. Even though Katherine was going through an ordeal and the family was being torn apart by the recent turn of events, the Jacksons had no choice but to continue to express a strong sense of unity to the media. Public relations was an important consideration. The family had been turning away from reality and toward image making ever since they arrived in Los Angeles from Gary. However, for Michael, nothing would ever be the same. Joseph's actions had resulted in the ultimate betrayal of his mother. Indeed, her entire family and Michael would have a difficult time dealing with his father on any level for many years. Like I said, just because you don't cheat don't mean that you a good wife. Because there's a lot of women who do not cheat, wouldn't even consider cheating, that keep a filthy, nasty house. Better press on. As time passed, Gina Sprague began to cover for Joseph Jackson whenever he wanted to visit his daughter. Even though the family knew about her, he didn't want to flaunt her, says Gina. Sometimes they would call and ask for him, and even though I knew he was with Giovanni and maybe even Cheryl, I would lie and say he was in a meeting or otherwise unavailable. This went on for months. Because Joseph and Gina seemed to share so many secrets, the word was out in his production company that they were having an affair. According to Gina, someone in the office began feeding misinformation to Katherine, who was already suspicious of all of Joseph's female friends and still reeling from the shock of Cheryl and Giovanni. Katherine, if you had some fucking business, you wouldn't be so worried about what the heck Joseph is doing. One day, the phone rang. Gina picked it up. Good afternoon, Joseph Jackson Productions. I want you to quit your job, said a female voice. Do you hear me? Quit or we're coming to get you. What? Who is this? Gina asked, panicked. The caller hung up. Gina was upset. She went straight to Joseph and told him about the mysterious call. Oh, that's just nonsense, Joseph told her, barely glancing up from his paperwork. No one is coming after you. I promise you, you'll be fine. The next day, October 16th, 1980, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Gina was behind her desk in the reception area of Joseph Jackson Productions, 6255 Sunset Boulevard, Suite 1001, the same building in which Motown Records was housed. When Randy Jackson, then 18, entered, he asked 2 other employees to leave the office so that he and Gina could be alone. The 2 employees did as they were told. Randy also left for a moment and returned with Janet, 14, and with Katherine. A bitter argument about Gina's relationship with Joseph ensued. Then, according to what Gina told police, matters got out of control, and Katherine, Randy, and Janet pulled her into the stairwell and assaulted her. When Jim Krieg, an office security guard, heard screams, he ran to investigate and later said he observed Randy holding Gina up against the wall while Katherine pummeled her with her purse. Now, I've talked about this before when we read either LaToya's book or the Jermaine Jackson Baby Mama book. I'm not sure. But this is what I'm talking about. Just because you don't cheat doesn't mean that you won't contribute to the delinquency of a minor. Better press on. Upon seeing the guard, Janet hissed at him. Leave, mister. This is a family affair. He left as instructed by the 14-year-old girl. Katherine grabbed a gold medallion from Gina's neck. This belongs to me, she said, not you. When one of Diana Ross's brothers happened by, he asked, Mother, what are you doing? Many of her friends called Katherine Mother. Go about business. This is a family matter, she told him, according to what he later recalled. He ran off, stunned. The rest of the police report is graphic in its account of the violence Gina says took place that afternoon. Joseph was in a meeting with his door closed. When Gina... What? Joseph ain't hear all that? That's crazy. That's crazy. That's hard to believe. When Gina came stumbling back into the office suite, she was crying. He ran out of his private office. "My God, what happened to you?" he asked her. Too upset to speak, Gina collapsed on the floor. Police officers and an ambulance summoned by Jim Krieg arrived on the scene. When medics lifted Gina to put her on a stretcher, she let out a piercing scream. Joseph leaned over and whispered urgently in Gina's ear, "Tell me who did this to you. Was it some crazy fan?" "It was Katherine," Gina said through her tears, her voice lowered so as not to be heard by anyone but Joseph. Joseph's eyes widened. "But that can't be true," he whispered. "It is true, Joseph," Gina insisted. "Just because you don't cheat don't mean that you're not a fake bitch." Michael was stunned by the way his mother, sister, and brother had supposedly attacked Gina. He could not reconcile such a violent act with the image of his beloved and gentle mother. He refused to believe it and insists to this day that it never happened. Why are you Virgos like that? You can say it all the time. You can be like, "Your mother is a bitch. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear she's a bitch." He refused to believe it and insists to this day that it never happened. Most of the family, though, knows that Katherine had reached her limit. Gina decided not to press charges against the Jacksons. She says that her attorney told her not to bother because those rich people will never be going to jail and you'll be wasting your time trying to put them there. Instead, she filed a $21 million civil lawsuit against Katherine, Janet, and Randy. I heard she still ain't got the money. In the end, Gina and Joseph negotiated an out-of-court settlement. She still ain't got it. At this time, the autumn of 1980, Michael supervised a music video of the Jackson song, "Can You Feel It?" Ironically, considering what was going on at home with Gina Sprague, the song written by Michael and Randy. Damn! Randy is a writer. I did not know that, y'all. Is an anthem to loving human relations. It's a nice place Michael comes from, Steven Spielberg has observed. I wish we could all spend some time in his world. Now, dig this. This is where Michael is creating a relationship with Jane Fonda. I don't know why. This is another one of Michael Jackson's issues. So we said it was the Grammys and him growing up in an era where being a black star is a hindrance to you. Being white, all things are available, like Grammys. White and rich, Grammys are available. But being black, you only get one Grammy. The next thing is, I can't quite put my finger on it, but I do believe that this interaction that he has with Jane Fonda creates a fetish in him for older women, because Jane Fonda is the one that sees Michael for what she believes he is, a pure innocence, and says that you should work on a remake of Peter Pan because that's what your character exudes, Peter Pan. Michael instantly connects with Jane Fonda because he tells her, "That's what I have all around my room. Pictures of Peter Pan." Once Michael and Jane were taking a drive. Jane was behind the wheel and they were discussing possible film projects for him. "God, Michael, I wish I could find a movie I could produce for you," she said wistfully. Suddenly, an idea occurred to her. "I know what you can do," she said. "Peter Pan, that's it." Tears began to well in Michael's eyes. He wanted to know why she would suggest that character. She told him that in her mind's eye, he really was Peter Pan, the symbol of youth, joy, and freedom. Michael began to weep. You know, all over the walls of my room are pictures of Peter Pan. I totally identify with Peter Pan, he said, wiping his eyes. The lost boy of Neverland. It's called trauma bonding. My sister had to explain to me what it was, but it's called trauma bonding. And I believe a lot of us on YouTube trauma bond. The women who he is attracted to or who he trauma bonds with are those women who have been pushed into the entertainment field early, where their parents control them. Jane Fonda's father is Henry Fonda. Ryan O'Neal and Tatum O'Neal. Diana Ross and Barry DeGordy. I know that ain't her pappy, but you know Barry DeGordy think he's everybody's pappy. Meanwhile, in the real world, a CBS record executive telephoned Michael to ask him how he should handle the press who had begun asking questions about his mother. What do you mean? Michael wondered. The Gina Sprague incident. Who's she? Michael asked snappishly. The woman who got into a disagreement with your mother, Randy, and Janet. That never happened, Michael said quickly. But, I'm sorry, Michael concluded, but I have to go now. Click. Ain't got time to be fucking entertaining this bullshit. He already pissed off at his mammy. By 1981, when he looked in the mirror, he saw a person he didn't like very much. A person who still allowed himself to be controlled by other people, whose talent was respected, but whose opinions didn't matter. He began to work on some of that with John Branca. But what could he do about the physical appearance of the man in the mirror? You say that you love